This video is sponsored by MyBookie.ag, giving the best lines to go and bet on these fights. UFC 294 is up on there, as well as other boxing fights that are coming up this October, like Francis Ngannou versus Tyson Fury, which has a huge gap in odds here. Tyson Fury a minus 1200. So if you think Francis Ngannou can pull it off, those are some massive odds right there. And in the UFC fights, Islam Makhachev is a 3.5 to 1 favorite. He's a minus 357. Huge favorite against Charles Oliveira. If you think Oliveira is going to pull that off, make sure to get on those odds now, because I think that gap is going to close the closer the fight gets. Khamzat Chimaev is a minus 400, 4 to 1 favorite, making Paulo Costa a big underdog. There's live bets as well. If you're more comfortable watching the fights before you bet, live betting is actually, in my opinion, the best way to bet on fights, because you actually see how it's playing out before you put anything on it. Like for an example, when you're watching that Sean Strickland and Israel Adesanya fight, you see Strickland handling Adesanya. It was probably best to put something on Strickland after seeing how that first round went down. And you can only do that with live betting on mybookie.ag. There's so many things to go and bet on, and MyBookie is giving us the biggest bonus they have ever done, only specifically for us. For anybody that watches my content and uses my promo code, they're going to give you a bonus of 110% on all first-time deposits, all the way up to $1,100. This is an exclusive bonus just for us. The minimum amount that you could put in is $50 to activate this bonus, and you have to use the promo code WEASEL to activate it. The offer is only going to be available, though, for 7 days, all the way till October 1st, this coming up Sunday. So make sure to make your first deposit, use the promo code WEASEL, get your bonus of 110% added on top of that, so you can really capitalize on these fights coming up this October. Make sure to capitalize on this bonus now. It's the biggest they have ever done, and it might not come again. So make sure to go to mybookie.ag and use the promo code WEASEL. That's W-E-A-S-L-E. UFC 294 is looking like it's about to be finalized here. A total of 13 fights on the card, and man, is that stacked. Just like the last 3 pay-per-views that are going to end the year, we're going to be starting with UFC 294, going to be located in Abu Dhabi on October 21st, headlined by Islam Makhachev versus Charles Oliveira 2. This card is amazing, man. You have the championship fight between Islam Makhachev versus Charles Oliveira 2. Co-main event is a banger between Paulo Costa and Khamzat Chimaev. You have a potential #1 contender fight between Magomed Ankalaev versus Johnny Walker. 2 respectable grapplers between Tim Elliott and Mokaev. A potential change of the guard. A great prospect fight between Nathaniel and Mohamed Naimov, even though there's a giant size difference between them two. You have Said Nurmagomedov on the card. Trevor Peek versus Mohamed Yahya. Bruno Silva's on the card. Nassourdine Imavov versus Ikram Aliskerov. Is such a great middleweight clash. I love that fight, man. You also have Javid Basharat on the card. Both the Basharat brothers are undefeated. Both guys are amazing, man. Really looking forward to how he's going to perform against Victor Henry. And my new favorite fighter is Victoria Dudakova, for obvious reasons. I have to double take sometimes to remind myself, oh wait, this person actually gets punched in the face. She's undefeated and from Russia. At 25 years old, she's going up against the 38-year-old Jinh Yu Frey, and Jinh Yu Frey looks like she's going to be out the door soon. So yeah, man, this card is looking spicy. This card's looking really entertaining. A lot of bangers, good prospects throughout it, great stylistic matchups. They really look to stack this card, and man, is a treat for the fans. I think it's probably going to happen earlier in the day, just like last time they fought there. And I prefer fights that happen earlier in the day compared to at night. For many fans, especially the hardcore fans, this is like the #1 fight of the year. Both Islam and Oliveira are a big deal in the sport. If Islam wins, he will tie Tony Ferguson's record for longest win streak in lightweight history, which is 12. He technically doesn't have 12 yet because his Bobby Green fight was a catchweight. And for anybody that brings up Habib had 2 catchweight fights, making his win streak 11 at lightweight. He will also get his second title defense, being 1 away from tying the record, which is 3. And if he beats Charles Oliveira, that would mean in Islam's last 3 fights, he would have wins against 3 top 5 pound-for-pound fighters of the world. That will be Oliveira twice and Alexander Volkanovski. Huge achievements waiting for Islam if he wins this. Now, as for Charles Oliveira, he would become the first ever 2-time lightweight champion. There has never been a champion in lightweight history that has gotten the belt twice. It would further himself as one of the greatest lightweights of all time. Most people do have him ranked at like #2 under Habib. If he beats Islam, I'm not going to say for myself, but there are going to be a lot of debates amongst the fans of who is the greatest lightweight ever, Charles or Habib. And if Oliveira beats Islam, he will literally have a win over the entire top 5. There has never been a lightweight in history that has done that. There's a reason why a lot of people are looking forward to this fight. It even has bigger stakes than the first time they fought each other. Now, do I see this fight being any different? Yes, I do see Charles Oliveira specifically coming out a bit different than before, where in the first fight he was a lot more aggressive looking for the knockout and even admitted that Islam got to his head prior to that fight. But this time he's going to be a lot more focused mentally and going to approach it the right way. I see him fighting Islam the way he fought Beneil Dariush, very similar to that, but Islam is going to have better striking this time. He's probably going to up his grappling. You would have to think that after that tough Alexander Volkanovski fight, Islam has come out of that a much better fighter. He's still going to look for the counter punches, the right hook or the left straight. There could be some left overhands here or there to catch the lack of head movement from Charles Oliveira, but he is getting better at it. In the Dariush fight, he did slip some punches, which is something we don't normally see him do. Lateral head movement on punches is something you don't see too often from Oliveira. Usually he's moving back or forward. Now I expect Oliveira to come out there looking to stalk from the outside, pressure with lead hand traps to find his right straight, and because of the pressure he could potentially force Islam to throw his left straight out there, and Oliveira could slip on the outside of it and counter it with his own right, similar to what he did against Beneil Dariush, who also is a southpaw just like Islam. But the thing is, Islam is a lot faster than Dariush, and he has way better footwork. Islam's explosiveness and just pure athleticism is very much underrated. He's not going to fall for traps as easily as some of Oliveira's previous opponents, and he might look to take the fight to the ground again. He did feel out though that it wasn't going to be as easy on the ground without hurting Oliveira first, just using his pure grappling skill as he expected in the first fight. He expected to get Oliveira to the ground and dominate on top. That only proved to be true after he hurt him with a punch first. But when Oliveira was clear-headed, the grappling was very, very even, showing that they are the best grapplers potentially in the entire UFC right now. At the end of the day though, I am going to ride with Islam as an early prediction. I do see the fight being rather difficult. Even Khabib, who is very good at predicting these kind of fights, has said that this rematch with Oliveira is going to be much harder for Islam than before. Khabib is in Islam's camp, he trains with him, and they're probably going to expect a much more difficult Oliveira than last time. And I see the same thing happening too. I would predict a 4th or 5th round stoppage for Islam, hurting Oliveira again and submitting him. I don't know if it's going to be from a counter punch. It could potentially even be an aggressive left overhand, catching Oliveira out of nowhere, dropping him, and then submitting him on the ground again. But I would not be surprised at all if Oliveira pulls this off. In order for Oliveira to catch Islam, he has to have his feet under him while he punches, similar to what Volk did. Right, Volk was able to shift in there, get his feet under before he threw the power hand to hurt Islam. This happened a couple times in that fight, but when Charles fought Islam the first time, he was overextending. His feet were not under him, and Islam has too sharp of eyes and amazing footwork to be able to get away from those kind of punches. You have to be a lot more seamless with your shots compared to what Charles did the first time, and I think he can find those off of the stalking from the hand traps, forcing out left hands from Islam, and never rule out head kicks from both these guys. Oliveira used powerful high kicks at Beneil Dariush that shook him up every time he threw him up there, meaning that you have to have some tight defense in order to block those shots. But Islam has very good high kicks himself too. So at the end of the day, I am going to go with Islam in a very difficult fight. But the winner of this fight is going to probably fight Justin Gaethje, who absolutely deserves it. The co-main event is Paulo Costa versus Khamzat Chimaev. Khamzat is going back up to the middleweight division. The funny thing is, everybody says, Khamzat hasn't fought in a long time. He's fought more recently than Costa has. Both guys are going to be coming off a year hiatus after their last fights. Paulo Costa has not fought since August of 2022, and Khamzat has not fought since September of 2022. But the thing is, Khamzat is generally more active than Paulo Costa. Costa on average fights once a year. He fought once in 2022, once in 2021, once in 2020, once in 2019, and once in 2018. He has fought one time per year since 2018. That is extremely inactive, and he has not had great performances in his last 3 fights. The inactivity is really hurting him. He didn't look great against Adesanya. He didn't look great against Marvin Vettori, even though he outweighed him in that fight, completely missed weight. And then he fought an old, retiring Luke Rockhold and did not look good in that fight either. But the thing is, on paper, Paulo Costa does have a good shot at beating Khamzat because he has decent takedown defense. He's a big, strong guy. He's one of the only guys that can be able to outmuscle Khamzat, overpower him. But with his inactivity and how sloppy he can be in a lot of things that he does, I can see Khamzat finding his way around him, being a bit too skilled in the grappling department, and even on the feet, landing good straight punches. Paulo Costa does not deal well with jabs. He gets popped in the face routinely by guys like Luke Rockhold, Israel Adesanya. Uriah Hall was really putting some damage on his face with those jabs, and we know that one of Khamzat's best punches is his jab, the same punch that he dropped Gilbert Burns with. He sets up his right hand off it pretty well, and Khamzat is definitely going to be the much faster fighter too. He may even have more power punch for punch, given his ability to one-shot guys that we've seen before. Paulo Costa looks like a guy who has menacing power, but he never really knocks anybody out the way Khamzat has done before. Right, Khamzat's knocked out Ikram Aliskerov with one punch. He knocked out Gerald Mearshart with one punch. You don't see that from Paulo Costa. And both those guys are middleweights, the same weight class that Costa fights in. So not only is Khamzat going to be faster, he may be more powerful, he has the wrestling advantage, but Paulo Costa does have some stuff going for him. He has decent footwork. He's able to cut off the cage fairly well. So if he pressures Khamzat back, Khamzat could be in some trouble, right? He's not used to that sort of thing happening to him. And even against Gilbert Burns, he had some issues on the back foot. He's not the same kind of guy moving backwards as he is moving forward. His punches become a lot more obvious to see. In theory, his takedowns will be more obvious too. And he becomes a lot more desperate to land some power punch to get this pressure off him. Paulo Costa can use that against Khamzat, trying to intercept any level change with uppercuts, just generally putting a lot of output on him. But he has to set everything off the jab. He cannot start with hooks against Khamzat because Khamzat could be firing that jab and straight right down that center and will catch Costa if those punches meet. The thing is also, if he's throwing hooks, Khamzat has a very fast level change that he showed even against Kevin Holland, one of the fastest takedowns I have ever seen. Even Daniel Cormier, who's watched countless wrestling matches, has said it is one of the fastest shots he's ever seen in his life too. And if Costa's throwing that hook that he telegraphs, Khamzat is going to duck right under that and take him to the ground. And from there, Costa's going to be in some trouble. The longer the fight goes, the more I do favor Khamzat too. Costa has slowed down in his fights a couple times throughout his career. Khamzat slowed down in the Gilbert Burns fight, but it was super fast paced. Both guys were exchanging power punches for 3 rounds. Most guys would start to gas out in that kind of fight, just as Costa would, right? Costa started gassing out in the Yoel Romero fight, which was kind of similar. But my early prediction for this, I am going to go with Khamzat Chimaev. I think the biggest thing going against Paulo Costa is the inactivity. And I think Khamzat will beat him by a decision, maybe winning 2 rounds out of the 3. Now, the winner of this fight could potentially get a title shot. I would say after Dricus. Dricus deserves it over everybody. Or the winner of this could fight Israel Adesanya. That would be awesome. We just don't know what the middleweight division is going to look like. What are they going to choose? We just heard Sean Strickland say that he's up to fight Adesanya again. He wants to make money, and that's going to be the fight that gives him the most pay-per-view points. And if that's the case, then I guess you do the winner of this versus Dricus, or in my opinion, Dricus deserves it over everybody, and then have the winner of Khamzat and Costa fight Adesanya. That's what I would do. And then the loser of this fight go up against Robert Whittaker. And then we go to Magomed Ankalaev versus Johnny Walker. We did not think this fight would happen after the skid that Johnny Walker went on after his shoulder injury. And here we are, the #1 contender fight in the light heavyweight division. The winner of this fight is getting a title shot. Johnny Walker is the #7 ranked fighter, but Magomed Ankalaev is ranked #2. If Johnny Walker beats Magomed, he's going to be right into the top 5, and I believe he deserves it. Anybody that beats Ankalaev with a vacant title fight that's going to be going on between Pereira and Prohaska, that guy should be next in line afterward. Now, Magomed Ankalaev has not lost in 5 years since he had that submission loss to Paul Craig. And in fact, Paul Craig has more ranked wins out of any other light heavyweight on the roster right now, and he is a middleweight now, which is crazy. 10 fights undefeated for Magomed Ankalaev. Johnny Walker is on a 3-fight win streak, beating Ian Cutelaba, Paul Craig, and Anthony Smith, looking very good in each of these fights. Much more technical than ever before, and it could possibly be the Johnny Walker era that we prophesized before. Everybody believed that Johnny Walker, when he first bursted onto the scene, was going to get a title shot. We doubted it after the shoulder injury, and he went 1-4 after that. But now here we are, where Johnny Walker is fighting Magomed Ankalaev. With a win over him, he could fight for the belt. Do I see it happening? I see Magomed winning. I like Johnny Walker. I would be super happy if he pulled it off. But Magomed Ankalaev is such a technical fighter. Other than pure athleticism and power, he has Johnny Walker beat pretty much everywhere. Just the attributes are on Johnny Walker's side. Skills are completely on Magomed Ankalaev's side. This is the light heavyweight division. Anything can happen. All these guys are big and powerful, and it is only 3 rounds. Every single punch is going to be so impactful, it can literally shift the whole trajectory of rounds. And there's only 3 of those. So Johnny Walker, if he's losing the fight, he's got to make something happen. Some big moment to steal these rounds, or try to knock Magomed out. Magomed, though, is an incredible counterpuncher with some of the best wrestling in the division, making it a very difficult style for Johnny Walker to come up against, because Johnny Walker, even though he's more technical these days, he's being a lot safer with what he does. he will still expose himself, and this is the wrong guy to do that to. Magomed will counter you faster and more precisely than anybody else besides maybe Pereira. So Walker is going to have to stay behind his jab, the front kicks, to try to open up Magomed, kind of similar to what Jan Blachowicz did. Jan wasn't super aggressive and forced Magomed out of his counter-punching defensive shell. And when you do that to Magomed, he becomes a lot more obvious with his own shots. And from there, Johnny Walker could find openings and counter him, throwing some unpredictable flying knees and some craziness that we know from Walker, and things get very interesting. But at the end of the day, I gotta go with Magomed Ankalaev. Even if his counter-punching is not working because Johnny Walker is not exposing himself enough, he could just go under for those takedowns and force some stuff out there. And because of that pressure, it's also going to force Johnny Walker to open up more. So I'm going to go with Magomed Ankalaev, and I'm going to go by a second or third round TKO due to ground and pound. And that would give Magomed Ankalaev the next title shot. And after that, we got Nassourdine Imavov versus Ikram Aliskerov. The two Dagestanis going at it. We actually don't normally see two Dagestanis fight. Is this the first time that's happened? Well, Nassourdine Imavov is the number 11 ranked fighter. Ikram Aliskerov is non-ranked, but he had an amazing UFC debut, knocking out Phil Haas in the first round. And he's getting thrown right into the Shark Tank. This is going to be a very interesting fight. Nassourdine Imavov is coming off a no contest against Chris Curtis that happened in the second round due to a headbutt, and before that he lost to Sean Strickland in the light heavyweight division, but before that he had 3 wins in a row. Ikram Aliskerov, on the other hand, is on a 6-fight win streak, has not lost since 2019 when he got knocked out by Khamzat Chimaev, which was actually the only loss of his entire career. So they are in very different kind of trajectories right now, but the thing is, Nassourdine Imavov is so talented. This guy has so much potential. It's just his fight IQ is not the greatest, man. He has the kind of skills to fight in any which way he wants, but he chooses to fight in a very passive manner, especially shown in that Sean Strickland fight. If he finds the opening, that's where he's going to explode, but if those openings don't present themselves, he's just very passive with everything. Now, the thing about Ikram Aliskerov is he will risk. He will try to forcefully open you up, and that will expose Ikram for Nassourdine to try to counter him. So I actually do think the stylistic matchup is pretty good for Imavov, but I don't know if he's going to be ready for that wrestling. Ikram Aliskerov is an elite Sambo artist. He's a 4-time Sambo world champion and a 2-time European champion. A guy so good at grappling, he stuffed every single one of Khamzat's takedowns. He has incredibly fast shots, very powerful and strong in the clinch. I just don't think Imavov is going to be ready for it. In the striking department, I actually do favor Imavov overall. I think Ikram could get a little too reckless. Nassourdine has amazing footwork, light and elusive on his feet, and strictly off of the footwork, I think he can cause Ikram to overextend and then counter him. The only thing is, Nassourdine has to be very aware of where the cage is. If his back is close to the cage, Ikram is going to get aggressive with some of those big power punches and transition right into a takedown, get him to the ground, and start to dominate. So I think because of that, Ikram is going to win this fight, and I think he wins it by a 3rd round submission, putting himself right into the top 15. We also have Tim Elliott versus Muhammad Mokaev on the card. The number 10 versus number 11 in the flyweight rankings. Big age gap between the two. The American Tim Elliott is 36 years old. The English and Russian Mokaev is 23 years old, who is looking better every single time. Now, the biggest question going into it is, how is Muhammad Mokaev's leg? He obviously had to have recovered, but I really wonder if it at all is going to affect him, not only in the training camp preparing for the fight, is going to hinder anything there, but also in the fight itself. Tim Elliott is an aggressive grappler. He's going to be shooting on those legs early and probably even look for some heel hooks and knee bars and stuff, or at least try to kick out the leg to test it. Overall though, Muhammad Mokaev should look pretty good in this fight. Tim Elliott right now is on a 2-fight win streak, 4-1 in his last 5 fights, and has really only lost to the best fighters in the weight class. He lost to Matthias Nicolau, who's number 6, high up in the rankings. He lost to Brandon Royval, who's number 4. He lost to Askar Askarov, who was a top-ranked fighter before he left. He lost to Davison Figueiredo. Ben Nguyen was kind of a weird loss for him. He got dropped and then submitted with a rear naked choke. And before that, he lost to Demetrius Johnson, John Dodson, Ali Bagutinov, Joseph Benavidez, and Zach Makovsky in the flyweight division. He's really only lost to the best guys besides Ben Nguyen and maybe Zach Makovsky. Everybody else is elite. Muhammad Mokaev, on the other hand, is an undefeated 10-0 fighter who rarely goes to a decision. This guy submits most of his opponents. In the UFC, he only has 1 decision win and 3 submission wins. So you definitely know this fight is going to hit the ground, and I think Muhammad Mokaev's pure wrestling is going to make the biggest difference here. I think he's a better overall wrestler than Tim Elliott, but Elliott is going to scramble once he gets to the ground. He's going to be testing a lot of the submission defense from Mokaev, probably jump in for a guillotine immediately and then go for the legs. I also do think Muhammad Mokaev is overall a more dangerous striker with his flexible kicks, flying knees. He's gonna have the range advantage. I think it should be a pretty good one for Mokaev to enter himself into the top 10. I see him winning the fight through a second round submission. And finally, we have Nathaniel Wood versus Mohamed Naimov. Both guys are unranked but on a streak right now. Nathaniel Wood on a 3-fight win streak in the UFC, all decision wins, but looking really good. His last one against Andre Fili was definitely a standout. And for Mohamed Naimov, he's on a 4-fight win streak. 3 of those by finish, 1 by split decision. In his last fight, he really put on a show with a huge upset against Jamie Mullarkey, and now he's going to come down to the featherweight division. He's usually a featherweight, but for that fight against Mullarkey, he fought in the lightweight division and destroyed him. And even at featherweight, he packs a lot of power, man. That's going to be the biggest issue for Nathaniel Wood. He cannot go toe-to-toe with this guy, punch for punch and trade shots. He has to be very precise on getting in with the jab and force out some big power shot and get under there for a takedown. I think Nathaniel Wood should be the overall better grappler of the two. I think he's going to have better control, but he's definitely going to be outsized here in the weaker fighter of the two. Nathaniel Wood is coming up from 135. Mohamed Naimov is able to fight at 155 and look not that small up there. I think this is going to be the sleeper of the card. Both guys are technical. Mohamed Naimov is going to have the power advantage, but Nathaniel Wood is pretty precise with what he throws, but he might be a little bit more well-rounded. I ultimately think the size and power difference is probably going to be the biggest factor here, and that's why I'm going to pick Mohamed Naimov in this fight, but I'm not too sure. Nathaniel Wood is more technical overall. There's going to be such a size difference though. Nathaniel Wood is small at featherweight. He's the kind of guy that would never be able to fight at 155. So UFC 294 is a stacked card. Leave in the comments below, what do you guys think about it? Do you guys think it's better than UFC 295 and 296? And where does this stack up with the other pay-per-views of the year? Make sure to give this video a like, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, and I'll see you guys in the next video.